Morning, everybody. I'm here with my buddy Darth. He's working for the propaganda minister of Max's models and wants to make sure I don't go off script. So, we'll force perspective. You know, he looks like he's halfway across the room because he's half scale, but actually, it's right there. Or maybe it just looks like forced perspective because I don't have my glasses on. This is going to be a short one and unedited because I have to go to PT in just a few minutes. Andy got up with me yesterday and sent me a lot of great pictures for the Aurora story that I did. So since I got all that great information, I'm re-editing an actual standalone video for that story. And in fact, instead of just reading them in the morning shows, I think this is important enough history. They merit their own videos. They'll be more like vignettes, but no outros or anything on them. Just the story, but with the proper photography and keep it in small chunks. So I'm going to be getting up with Andy for proper photos for all of them because he's an incredible resource, and I think the history is important enough that it really does merit standalone videos. In fact, what I'm going to be doing is making them, sending them to him to make sure I got the details right. And once, you know, it gets Andy approved, then I'll release them into the wild because it really is, I think not only it's that important, but Andy is such a rare resource. He's a great archivist. When he sends me pictures, they're all labeled with exactly what they are. A lot of times they're dated. It really makes things, and they're nicely scanned. It really makes for a much higher quality production and makes my end a lot easier. We'll be doing, I think we'll be doing it that way. And he's putting forth a lot of work to get all this stuff together. And if he's going to put in that kind of effort, so am I. Anyway, last night I did some re-editing on the video with Pete Vetri, and he and I tentatively have another meeting planned, Zoom meeting tomorrow night. So we'll figure out how we want to work that. So that's that. And more coffee. They should sell this in an IV. Oh, then we can get to taste it though. So I was wondering, as I'm prone to do, some of the kits you guys build, the dioramas and stuff, are clearly the result of a great deal of effort and research. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes when I get a kit, I'll just, a lot of times I'll just use the decals on the instruction sheet, and then I find out later that the company had perhaps used let's just say a not entirely accurate source, and their decals are wrong. And I was just wondering how many times you guys have like built a model, and it came out nice, oh, you're real happy with it, and you maybe see a picture of the actual car or airplane or tank or whatever, go, hey, wait a minute, those weren't the correct markings. You know, it was this way, not that way. Speaking of models, I don't know if you guys ever built the Baba Black Sheep Corsair, 1/32 scale Corsair. But somebody sent me a really detailed and lengthy web page that I probably couldn't find now if I tried, but I imagine you could Google it in 30 seconds and find it, on the actual aircraft that were used to make the TV show Baba Black Sheep. And I think there were 5 of them, but I think I had made the glib comment about the one that had the arrow on the wing and the tail, that it was probably already marked up that way. But apparently, according to the book, most of them were painted for the show in the Navy markings. So that's probably not correct. So I don't believe the MF-214 had that marking on it. Now, I could be wrong. I have not researched this, but the I'm not sure. I guess maybe they did it because they wanted one to look like a squadron leader or something. I'm not really sure why, but for those who remember, all of the Corsairs on the TV show Black Sheep Squadron, that dark blue with just the white star and bar, and but one of them had an arrow on the tail, a big white arrow, and a big white arrow on the wing. And of course, they were not all. I don't think any of them were the correct model, because most of them were later models, because that's what they had. If I remember correctly, when Boeington was with the squadron, they still had the birdcage Corsairs, I believe. And there's supposed to be a really nice kit of that came out. Was it from Trumpeter? That was like 1/32 scale. And I think it was, as I recall, it was ghastly expensive. For those who don't know, the famous Corsair, the gull, or like technically inverted gull wing fighter, the early model that was fielded had an actual framed canopy. It didn't have that nice cleared bubble canopy. That came a little bit later, and apparently it was desperately needed. The Corsair, that was, I used to tell my dad used to say that airplane was so ugly it was beautiful. I mean, the inverted gull wing, the tail pushed forward, the cockpit pushed way back. It sat almost level on that huge tail wheel. And then, I forget if it was it Greg's Airplanes or Zeno's, or one of them, got into this, I think it was Greg's, but anyway, he got in this really detailed video about why the Corsair was shaped like it was. And when you, everything on that airplane, the reason it was so fast, despite being a big round engine, slightly fat winged fighter, the reason it was so fast had to do, everything on that airplane had a design functionality. Nothing was there arbitrarily, which I guess you kind of expect, but he explains why the tail's pushed forward, or looks like it's pushed forward, and why the wing is the inverted gull and all this other stuff. And when you listen to the math and the engineering decisions, every single thing on that airplane made perfect sense. In fact, one could argue it was even a stroke of genius. But then the Bearcat, which was a little bit faster, basically broke every rule the Corsair made, but of course it was also evolutionary technology. The tail's not pushed forward on the Corsair. The tail ends where that fin's at. That protrusion of the rear is just an aerodynamic cone. It's essentially empty. The inverted gull wing, you drag is greatly reduced when the root of the wing comes out at 90 degrees. But if they had done that in the middle of the airframe, then they'd had the super long landing gear, so they had to do it down lower on the airframe, so they had to gull it. They put the oil cool, but they didn't want to run the wing spar under the airplane like the Hellcat. They wanted it to come straight out of the fuselage to keep a smaller frontal area. And to do that, to put the oil coolers in the wing roots instead of under the chin like the Hellcat. So it had that much smaller round frontal area. And all these other decisions. The cockpit on the original one was much further forward, but they moved it back for a lot of reasons, including, there were things about visibility and fuel storage and everything else, but it all made sense. Everything in an airplane's a compromise. The one thing, I know it'd be extra cost. The one thing I wish kit makers would do, though, if you're going to make a model of the Corsair, I'd like to have the option to have a molded wing that does not have a folding wing design, because every time you put a folding wing design on a model, then of course, if you want to, it's got to look decent, it's got to be hyper detailed, that's fine. But and then some of them are, but if you want the wing closed, one piece, then it's a lot of work to get that the wing to seal up properly. So either make it seal up super tight, or just make it a one piece. But I know that means extra parts. And one thing I thought about was, what if you made the wing a one piece, but on the core side you had a ridge that followed where the wing would be, where it would break open for storage, for folding. So what someone could do is they got a perfectly smooth surface, and if they wanted to make it with the wings extended, then they maybe put some reinforcing plates on the inside, something small and minor, but they could just build the wing. But then if they wanted to make it a folding wing, it's pre-etched for them just to take an X-Acto knife or something and grind out that little bit. Just a thought. I'm not sure how well that would work, but that's my 2 cents. Because Corsairs can be a bit tricky to build for the reasons we just discussed. All those kind of, well, let's call it on the ground, ungainly looking parts in the air. It looks beautiful. But what's that old saying? If it looks right, it flies right. Well, I love the Corsair, but I'll be the first one to admit that it doesn't necessarily have to look right to fly right. But it sure helps. So what, question of the day, if you're a aviation type, what's your favorite folding wing model? Avenger, Wildcat, Corsair. I'm going to go with my Revell 1/32 scale Wildcat. So guys, no chance to edit today. I'm just going to upload this straight, and then I got to get off to PT here in a few minutes. So got to rush, got to chug. Y'all have a great day. Model on.